working. And I believe we are now live. So I'd like to excitedly welcome Dr. Sian Proctor, who is going to be chatting to us a little bit about her journey to becoming an astronaut. We'll also look at some of the connections that she has to Mars and to the Humans to Mars Summit, which is coming up on the 16th to the 18th of May. And of course, not only does Dr. Proctor have a relationship with the Explore Mars team, she was also the head of the board. Is that correct? We might have a connection issue here. Are you back again? Oh, there we go. We lost you there for a second.
Yeah, I think you froze for a second there, but I'm back.
So you were involved, or you still are involved with Explore Mars, is that correct?
That's correct. I'm an ambassador for Explore Mars, but I was on the board for many years.
So now this is my experience. I get to meet you on a couple of panels at the Humans to Mars Summit. And, you know, I'm obviously excited about the fact that you're a science communicator, you're a professor of geology.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. And you obviously have a connection with space, and you've done some analog missions, and I'm loving everything that I'm hearing. And then literally a couple of months later, there is this big competition where they are going to be choosing some people to fly on a SpaceX rocket up into space. And of course, everyone applied. We all wrote our poems. We all did our artwork. We did everything we could. And I heard nothing. But you got the call. Tell us about that experience.
Oh, you know, that's it's life-changing. You know, when you get you want something really bad, you've entered the contest, and like you said, it's a competition. So there's a lot of other amazing people that are trying to also win it. And then to get the news that you're the one, that you got the golden ticket, it was amazing. And I hope everybody gets to experience what that's like to, you know, want something really badly, and then all of a sudden, there it is, you've got it.
But now, to be fair, it's not like they just pulled you randomly out of a hat. And it wasn't just because you did a great poem or something. I mean, you do have the credentials. You are a pilot.
I am.
You are obviously someone who knows a lot about space, because you actually applied for the astronaut corps. Is that correct?
Yes, in 2000, I was a finalist for the 2009 NASA astronaut selection process, which means that I got down to that yes/no phone call. And it was a heartbreaking no. But one of the important things is when you are faced with disappointment or adversity, is how do you come back from that? How do you pick yourself up and move forward? And I did that by becoming an analog astronaut living in Moon and Mars simulations.
Well, I mean, living in Moon and Mars simulations is one thing, but you did a few of them, actually. In fact, you also
I've done 4 of them. Yeah.
And was one underwater or one to do with water?
No, I have not become an aquanaut yet. So that's a future mission. But I've lived in the high seas habitat twice. One time was for 4 months to investigate food strategies for long duration space flight, and that was funded by NASA. But then I've also lived in the Mars Desert Research Station, and I've also lived in Poland in Lunaris habitat.
Sure. Okay, so you've done quite a lot of exciting things, but nothing comes close to having your dream realized of actually going to space. And one thing that is unique about your experience is that it was completely documented for a Netflix series. And if any of you have had the privilege of watching that series, it really is incredibly emotive, because, you know, there I am watching, and I know that you've been selected, but I'm feeling all the feels that you were feeling. And I mean, you can't even put that into words. There's no ways to describe, you know, that kind of incredible experience, that there you are sitting in your home and you hear this news that is, no, I mean, did you think it was a prank?
No, I hope not. No, I was just really super excited, but then you go right into training mode. I mean, basically, I got the Zoom call, and then they said, we're going to pick you up 2 days later, and we're off to Hawthorne to SpaceX's headquarters, and we're going to start training. And so that was one of the things that, you're trying to process it, but it's all happening so quickly that you are just, diving into the deep end and getting yourself qualified to take on the position, because not only was I selected for the prosperity seat, but Jared was kind enough to also say, I'd like you to be my mission pilot. And so that meant that I had to qualify for that position.
Okay, so before we get onto that, I know that if someone told me I'm going to space and it's going to take 3 months, I drop everything and I go. So you must have had a lot of things on the go that you had to put on pause. How did you arrange that?
Oh, I feel so fortunate. I've been a community college professor, part of the Maricopa Community College District in Phoenix for over 20 years, and they're incredibly supportive. And so when I told them that I got selected and that I needed to take time to go and train, they reassigned me as the astronaut in residence at Maricopa Community Colleges. And then that became my job, was to go and get flight ready.
All right, so now the thing is, I need to know, what was it that you did that Jared noticed and thought, that is the one I want to join Chris and Haley and myself on this trip?
Well, the prosperity seat was about showing your entrepreneurial spirit, and you had to create a video expressing why they should take you to go to space. And I became a space artist. Here is some of my work. I'm an Afrofuturist artist. I like metallic paints and being able to bring themes about women and African American or people of color in space. And so instead of just sitting here and saying, oh, you should select me because I'm an artist and a poet, I actually wrote a poem called Space to Inspire. And I read that as my entry for the prosperity seat. And I think that caught the attention of the judges, because it wasn't just saying, this is what I am. I showed them that this is what I am.
Wow. I mean, that is profound. I mean, what I like about it is that you are a STEMmy person, but you got their attention with the arts. And I
did.
think that's a powerful tool to know that you can wield both weapons at the same time.
It really is. And so would you like to hear my poem?
I would love to hear your poem. I mean, how often do you get a chance to hear it from the person that actually wrote it?
So I self-published a book of art and poetry when I got back from space. And this is my poem, Space to Inspire. You've got space. I've got space. We all have space to inspire. That's why we dream of going higher and higher. But what is space if you can't breathe? Let's stop sucking out the air of our humanity. We have a moment to seize the light, Earth from space, both day and night. We have J for justice, to ignite the bold. We have E for equity, to cut past the old. We have D for diversity, to end the fight. And we have I for inclusion, to try to make it right. A Jedi space to rally behind, a universal force so big it binds. Inspiration to change the world, a new beginning for us to hold. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about space to inspire for all of humanity. Science, technology, engineering, and math, sending us out on the explorer's path. But don't forget the arts, the heartbeat of time. Consider sending a poet who knows how to rhyme. So let us drop the mic and close that capsule door. But please make sure Dr. Proctor's on board. My Space to Inspire is what we need inspiration for all of humanity.
Very powerful stuff. And what I find fantastic is that poem has led you on a journey that I don't think anyone could ever envisage. And if you just follow Dr. Proctor on social media, you will know that she is a selfie queen, because she gets to go to some of the most incredible places, meet up with the most incredible people. It's like you're on this spinning wheel. Do you ever stop and think, I hope this is not going to end?
Yeah, of course. It's been amazing. Post space life is pretty fantastic. I was just at Yuri's Night LA, and I got to meet some of my Star Trek heroes because I grew up watching Star Trek. Nichelle Nichols was a big influence on me. And so yeah, I think that I feel very fortunate that I can share my space story with a large group of diverse individuals, but I also get to meet people who inspire me.
That is amazing. And I promise you, if you go look at those social media images, you will see that not only does she get to meet inspiring people, but you get to go back to SpaceX and you get to check out the latest toy that Elon Musk has revealed is flight ready. Is that correct?
Starship, yes. So I got invited back to SpaceX to give a talk. And while I was there down in Starbase in South Texas, it just so happens that Starship is getting ready to be launched. It's the largest rocket ever built, and it will one day carry humans to the moon, Mars, and beyond.
Are you holding thumbs that maybe the moon's a trip to the moon is on the cards?
Yes, I would love to go to the moon. I'd go to Mars. I'll take anything. It was amazing. I loved every moment of my experience going to space, but 3 days isn't enough.
I can imagine not. So let's talk about that. Your experience of going to space. That first day that you're sitting in that seat and the rocket is about to take off, a million things are going through your mind. Obviously, some of them might be a little bit of a concern. What happens if this thing doesn't go according to plan?
A lot of times people ask me, was I afraid the day of liftoff? And I'm like, no, I was so much more afraid that it was going to be taken away from me, before I got to the point of going, because you got to remember, it's COVID. I have to qualify. You can't get hurt. You can't get sick. There's all of these things that, and I kind of like equate it to the Olympics. When somebody gets onto the Olympic team, people are always congratulating them, and they're like, no, I still have to like go and compete and win the gold, the gold medal. And so for us, you get selected, and it's this amazing changing experience, but then you're training, you're working hard with your crew. And during that time, you can't have anything go wrong to derail you and lose that seat. And then you get to the point where you're at the like the Olympics of space, you're going to launch, and you got to get the gold medal. You got to perform. You've got to do everything correct. So I was laser focused on the job and doing the best that I can. But I got to tell you, I was so ready for them to light that Falcon 9 up, and let's go.
So you didn't ask them like while they're going 10, 9, you go 4, 3. You just quickly.
Yeah, I was like, light it. Punch it, Chewie, as my commander would say.
And then, of course, you feel the force of that rocket taking off, and normally it takes a shuttle about 8.5 minutes to reach weightlessness. I would assume it's probably around about the same with you as well. When that sensation of weightlessness occurs, you've done the zero gravity flights, so you probably thought, it's going to be was it the same, or was it a completely different experience?
It was even better, because it didn't, when you do a zero gravity flight, you get 20 seconds of weightlessness if you're lucky. And so you're pulling these big G's where you're going weightless to then again, positive to negative G's basically. But this time you get there, your second stage cuts off, and you're like, your hands are floating because you're buckled in. and you're like, oh, this is new. And then you unbuckle and you slide out of your seat. You float out of your seat, and you get to remain suspended for, the entire time you're up there in space. And there's nothing like floating. It's so cool. And the zero G experience gives you a little bit of that, but having that sustained ability to just float and effortlessly kind of move around the capsule is really amazing.
Now, I know from all the astronauts that I've worked with, they obviously had to get down to doing science experiments, and they were there for 6 months or 3 months at a time. You only had 3 days. Did you get to do some science experiments?
Yeah, so we had the butterfly ultrasound, which is portable. And so we were doing ultrasounds of our eyeballs, of our interjugular vein, of our bladder. We were taking blood draw. We were doing microbiome research. We were doing some experimental research. So our days were jam-packed.
For like 6 minutes, and then the rest of the time you were looking through the window to see. I mean, you had a very unusual cupola that where the whole lid would come off, and you'd be able to see the spectacular view.
Yeah, so this is a 3D print of the Dragon capsule. And then when we opened up our nose cone, this is normally where you would dock to the International Space Station. But in our case, since we were doing a free flyer mission, SpaceX built this beautiful domed cupola for us to be able to see Earth with. And so you could slide up into the cupola to about here, and you have this big, beautiful dome, and it felt like you were literally floating in space.
And the overview effect, was it as profound for you as it been for most other astronauts?
Oh, absolutely, but in a different way, because for me as a geologist, like I knew about the overview effect before I launched and I was preparing myself for this, but it was different in the sense that as a geologist, I know that the Earth has a high reflectivity, but what I wasn't prepared for was Earth light. So if you look at my face here, all of the light on my face, that is Earth light. It's like moonlight, but only more spectacular. So you think about how when you walk outside and you see a full moon rising and you're walking in the moonlight, think about how that makes you feel. And think about humanity's history with moonlight and all of the myth and the lore and werewolves and all of these kinds of things. Well, Earth light is way more spectacular. And so when you get into low Earth orbit, you're being bathed in Earth light. And so every time I slid up into the cupola, there was the Earth. Now, well, during the night, when we went into the nighttime, you don't have that. But during the day, you have all this reflective light and the energy that the Earth is creating itself just beaming at you. It's spectacular.
So you could tell us now, just between you and I, no one else is listening. Was there a fight? Did you have to pull Jared and Chris and Haley out of the cupola and say, hold on, it's my turn. You had your 6 minutes. Get out. It's my turn. I'm doing an experiment.
No, we all got along really well, but it was funny because I definitely have pictures because 2 people, even 3, at one time, all 4 of us kind of managed to get up there. That was a little bit tight. But the funny thing is that Haley's hair took up more than the cupola. So it was, this web of hair. So I would try to take a selfie and there'd be like Haley hair, coming in from the side. So that was the running joke, was that her hair was everywhere.
And that is obviously something that a lot of astronauts with long hair would experience, that it just floats all over the place.
Yeah, I cut mine nice and tight and short during COVID about I would say, when did I cut my hair? Oh, about not even 6 months before I found out that I won Inspiration 4. But I used to have long hair, cut it short, but I don't regret that. I love my short hair.
I can imagine not. So now you're obviously in space. Rumor has it that a toilet stopped working. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had a waste fan issue. And so that was the big thing, is that helps with, when you're up in space, the big thing is suction, and you need fans to be able to create that suction. And so there was an issue with that.
So obviously a plan B would be something that you would have rehearsed and practiced, should there be, because it's happened before on the International Space Station, that the toilet has stopped working, and it's not like you can afford to get a plumber up there.
No, and well, the thing about it is that you get so well trained by SpaceX. So when you get an alert or alarm, everybody knows what they're supposed to do, and then that's when you work with your, SpaceX to troubleshoot whatever's going on, and then work on a plan to move forward. And in this case, we were able to move forward and continue the mission and not have to come home early. And I think that that's the big thing is, things do go wrong in space. And that's why you get trained, and you have not only your crew, but you have your extended crew, which is the entire team that's on the ground that's working to solve those problems with you. The classic example is Apollo 13.
Absolutely. So now you did mention that you have done some analog missions, and obviously you've spent some time on Mars. You even wrote a Mars cookbook. Tell us about that.
I have it right here since you're mentioning it. So I lived in the high seas habitat. I actually took this picture at night. That was my first time really dabbling into astrophotography.
That's a killer shot.
Yeah, meals for Mars. So I lived in that habitat it was 10 years ago. Right now, it's our 10-year anniversary of living in the high seas habitat. And I lived there for 4 months with 5 other individuals investigating food strategies for long duration space flight. And so you don't want hangry astronauts, and going to Mars is a long journey. And so how do you keep them healthy and happy and mentally satisfied with food? And so we lived there for 4 months. Again, it was on the big island of Hawaii. So at 8,000 feet on the slope of Mauna Loa, very volcanic, no trees and vegetation, none of that. And so very Mars-like. And every time you went outside, you had to wear a spacesuit. But the main thing was the cooking. And we had a beautiful pantry filled with freeze-dried meats and vegetables and anything that was shelf-stable for up to 2 to 3 years you could have. And basically we did an experiment where 2 days we ate like astronauts currently eat on the International Space Station, which is just add water and heat meals, so pre-prepared meals, versus being able to creatively cook using freeze-dried food. So you might have a tin can of freeze-dried chicken and a tin can of freeze-dried mushrooms and, all of these different vegetables and meats and spices. And you could creatively cook by re-adding the water into the food and then make some of your favorite dishes that way.
Whew. Well, what is your opinion on going to Mars? Do you think we're going to get there within the next 10, 15 years, 20 years,
Absolutely.
30 years?
Yeah. Yes.
You seem very confident about that.
Yes, why not?
Well, if you look at the way space exploration's been moving, it's moving at an exponential rate. If you look at the last 20 years and then the last 10 years and the last 5 years, just the number of launches alone tell you that we are progressing at such a rapid pace that there's no reason why we can't get to Mars. The problem is that it's quite a challenging journey, and it's fraught with many obstacles.
It absolutely is.
To find solutions?
Yeah, that's what's great about human ingenuity and imagination, is that we find solutions and we figure things out. And what I love about us going to the moon and then Mars and beyond is that all of that problem solving goes to making us more sustainable here on Earth. So when we solve for space, we solve for Earth. And what I mean by that is that space is the ultimate hostile environment. Whether you're on the moon or Mars, it's all about efficiencies in food, water, energy, shelter, and waste management. What big 5 problems do we have on Earth? Food, water, energy, shelters, waste management. And so as you create these efficiencies in how to tackle those problems, all of that is created here on Earth with really smart people. And then that technology gets spun off to make us become more efficient in all of those ways and on a global scale. And so I think that we need to push humanity out on into the stars so that we can basically make our planet, which is the best planet in the solar system, more habitable for us long term.
Now, what are your plans for the next, I can't even say 5 years because your life is just on a roller coaster at the moment. What are your plans for the next 6 months? Because you never know where it's going to take you.
You know, for me, I became an artist and a poet during COVID, and that changed my life because it gave me, it enabled me to express things in an authentic way I wasn't able to do as a scientist. You know, my call sign is Leo, and my crew members gave me that call sign because they considered me to be a modern day Renaissance woman, somebody who combines science and art, but also, you know, in a way that Leonardo da Vinci did. So my call sign Leo is from Leonardo da Vinci. But I didn't traditionally, I'm not a traditional artist who went to school for art. So I'm learning a lot and teaching myself how to paint and how to create, and then share the things that I'm creating in unique ways. Like even this here, this is my art, and it's a night light, so it lights up, and so I'm learning all kinds of fun things like that, but also sharing my love of space and my space story with the next generation.
I mean, I'm very fortunate that I'm involved with a couple of initiatives. One of them is the teacher liaisons, the Space Foundation teacher liaisons, which I believe you're going to be speaking at. It's probably in the next week or two. Or you were coming up?
You know, I did last year.
No, but I think, is it not happening again this year?
If they invited me, then I missed that invite.
Okay, I was looking at maybe it wasn't that, it was something else. The SEEC, another one. I'm involved with a couple of initiatives, and one of them said that you were coming to speak. I'm sure it was one of those.
I'm coming to speak at Planet Labs in DC on Wednesday. It might have been.
It might have been that one. I mean, your speaking engagements, literally. How do you find time for you?
You know, it's a balance. You know, I feel like I'm definitely busy and I'm hardly ever home. But it's also, you know, with great opportunity comes great responsibility. And so I really love being out sharing my story, talking about STEM education, being a community college professor. You know, I think that education is really important, and talking about how we need to continue to develop our workforce and how to help people, you know, get inspired to think about finding themselves in a career where they're working for the advancement of human spaceflight. And that can be as a scientist, a technologist, as an engineer, in the trades, we're talking like, but it can also be in the arts and humanities and business. And so you have a place in space, and you just need to want to be a part of this. And there's so much opportunity that's happening. I think that it brings me joy to be able to go and share that message around the world.
I can imagine. I have a couple of questions coming through here. Brian wants to know, what kind of training did SpaceX actually give you? So, I mean, how long did you actually train for? And then what sort of training did you have to do?
Yeah, so I trained for 5.5 months with my crew, and we did things like crew cohesion, where we hiked Mount Rainier in snow, and you know, for crew bonding, and that really gives you experience with you know, comfortable being uncomfortable, but particularly because I come from Phoenix and cold weather, but being able to rely on you crew members, doing centrifuge training and hypoxia training, and doing you know, because you have the hypobaric and hyperbaric chambers that you get to go in and learn about that. but also the centrifuge training. What does it feel like to pull a significant amount of G's, but also fighter jet training, which was one of my favorites. Got to fly in a MiG-29 and an L-39 and an Alpha jet. But the bulk of it as the mission pilot was to be with my commander, J.E.D.I, in the simulator at SpaceX. And so you can imagine they have a mock-up of the Dragon capsule and its flight computers. And so we spent hours and hours and hours learning about all of the systems of not only the Dragon capsule, but the Falcon 9 rocket, and how those systems integrate, and then what we can do, with the flight computer, and what kind of controls we had or couldn't do.
There are a lot of young girls of color who often, when they think about space, their only reference point at one stage was a white male. And
that was
then
my
the
reference point.
astronaut, well, there we go. And then, of course, the astronaut corps started changing. The demographics started balancing out. How important is it for you to become the role model that you never had when you were younger?
Well, it's extremely important. That's why my poem talks about creating a J.E.D.I space, a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space for all of humanity. And that means that it's important that we have gender equity and ethnic and racial equity included in the advancement of human spaceflight, because we can't say space is for everyone and then only send white males. And so it's really important. But diversity, it's been shown that diversity within crews and teams make for better outcomes. And so I became the 4th African-American woman to fly to space. And then Jessica Watkins flew after me as the 5th, but that's only 5 of us. And in the last 13 years, 2, me and her, have flown to space. And so, when you think about representation, 2 Black women is not, in the last decade, is not a lot. And so you really need to think about why, when we're talking about selecting the best of the best, what does that mean when the inequities of the world? And so when we talk about selecting the best of the best, we need to talk about it from a J.E.D.I lens, so that you can have these crews that are diverse and inclusive, so that you get the best options and opinions when you need them.
I think it's a fantastic thing. Now, I know the time is short for you, but what sort of message do you want to give the younger people out there in terms of pursuing an opportunity to go to space? Because you didn't get that chance. They said no the first time, and a friend of mine, Don, was refused about 5 or 6 times, but he just knew in his heart that he was definitely going to apply. So, you just got a wonderful golden ticket, but that's certainly not going to be the only thing that's going to keep you. You're going to do whatever you can to go again.
Well, one of the big things is, I always had hope that I would go even commercial, and commercial is changing everything. And it's pretty fitting that our Dragon capsule was resilience, because you need resilience. And so for the young people out there that are listening, if you want to go to space, there's no reason why you cannot achieve this dream, because space is changing. We're in this next space phase where opportunity is coming down the pipeline quickly. And a lot of that is because of commercial space. In the last 2 years, commercial space flew the oldest person, the youngest person, me as the first African-American woman mission pilot, Haley as a childhood cancer survivor with a prosthesis. So when you're talking about diversity and access, it's opening up. And you look at some of the flights that are coming down the pipeline with my commander Jared and the Polaris Dawn mission going again and again. That's all civilian. You look at what's happening with Blue Origin and Virgin, and as they continue to spin up and fly regular people to space. It's exciting time to be a part of it. And the way that you do that is by thinking about space to inspire. And when I say space to inspire, I'm not talking about outer space. I'm talking about this space, the space you inhabit. This is the most unique space that will ever exist for you. And what you do with your space matters. How you think about it, how you talk to yourself, how you talk to others, how you interact with the world around you, it all matters. And so your job is to find how to use your space to inspire yourself and those around you and beyond.
We can drop the microphone. No, don't drop the microphone. They're very expensive. But I mean, that is an incredible way of putting it. And I think that definitely wise advice for anyone that is pursuing a career in the sciences or space. But it doesn't hurt to send a lovely letter to Jared and become his friend, just in case he's looking for. How many people is he selecting for the next one?
Well, he's already selected them. But the key is, though, like Space for Humanity, they've sent 2 people to space. They spent the first Mexican-born female to space and the first Egyptian female to space. And so, you know, there are a lot of opportunities, and you got to just start following the space industry and
I
keep
applied.
up with
They
what's
didn't
happening.
choose me. But don't worry, I'm not giving up. They'll have another competition and I'll apply for that too.
Exactly. And there are ways that you can get yourself flight ready by joining organizations like Explore Mars and attending the Human to Mars Summit, the Analog Astronaut Conference. And like I said, just keeping in tune with what's happening. There's a lot happening. So it's a lot to keep up with, but it's also super exciting.
I think that is actually incredible. So what we're going to do is we're going to say thank you so much. Are you going to be at the Humans to Mars Summit?
I will be.
Wonderful. So from the 16th to the 18th of May, please make sure you get out to the Humans to Mars Summit out in DC. You will get a chance to meet Dr. Proctor. I know Brian and Sean, you'll probably be there, and they are presenting at the conference as well. In fact, Brian and Sean went on a zero gravity flight because he wrote an essay that won him the opportunity to go flying in zero gravity. I unfortunately do defy the laws of gravity, so I won't be moving anywhere, but hopefully I'll get a chance one day to go on a zero gravity flight. Well, we've run out of time, but I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Proctor, for literally squeezing us into your incredibly busy time between Yuri's night, Yuri's day, and everything else in between. You've managed to make time for us, which we really appreciate. Please make sure you go out to the Humans to Mars Summit and get a chance to meet this wonderful, passionate, enthusiastic science communicator who, let me tell you a little secret, when I first connected with her online, she was a very positive person. But ever since she's been on this trip, she's got this effervescent smile that I don't think you could ever encapsulate. I don't think your smile has ever been as big as it is ever since you came back from that trip, because you've got this innate knowledge that, you know,
Earthlight.
I fulfilled that dream.
Yep. You get permanent when you go to space.
Well, thank you so much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the recording here. And I'm going to stop the live stream over here. Brilliant. That is now done. And